and I can't believe I never asked myself the question, right? Was how many Arabs can I think of in the history of film on this side of the world, right? Who you get to know and love, not fear. And so when they die, you mourn.
Welcome back to What I Did Next. I'm Malak Fuad. We're continuing my conversation today with actor and activist Khalid Abdalla. You can find the first part of my chat with Khalid on your podcast app and on YouTube. On today's episode, Khalid tells me about the 4-year journey behind his solo play, Nowhere. I had the opportunity to check out the play when I was in London a few months ago, and it was unbelievably moving and powerful. There were so many emotions I felt when I was watching it because, like you, there were, a lot of questions of identity, belonging. What can you do? Where is the agency? Where is your part in the bigger story? And I wanted to get a sense from you about that play. I know it was a long time coming that you'd been asked a few years before, when are you going to write something? And you said, not now, not now. Why was the moment right? And how did it all come about? And how do you feel now it's done? Because when you and I spoke to just have our sort of intro chat, you said, listen, I've got, all this is coming up. I want to put some distance between my play and when you and I talk. And I want to get a sense from you how you feel about the play, what it meant for you to do it, and how you feel about it now.
I'm still trying to understand.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, because I'm still trying to understand it as well.
And its journey isn't finished as well, so it probably will happen again, and it will probably have a life over the next few years. Nonetheless, I've crossed the threshold of doing it.
That was a big thing in your mind, wasn't it?
Huge. It's my first play. It's a very personal piece of work, and it is the culmination of a lot of thinking and pretty much everything that matters to me in the world. It is my response to my experience of 2011 and the counter-revolution that followed. It touches on Palestine. It touches on intergenerational aspects of my family history, all the things that we've already started talking about, and the attempt to try and make that into a theatrical piece of work, a piece of art, hopefully. So it is all of those things, and of course, when you do that, the process from first draft to first performance was just over 4 years.
Yeah.
And you walk that entire journey kind of going, this has never happened, and doubting yourself, and and then it happens, and it equals or surpasses your expectations, which is extraordinary.
That's incredible. Did it feel cathartic for you?
I'm having to think about that question. Does it feel cathartic? I don't know. To be honest, I just feel like it's an ever unfolding horizon. Catharsis somehow feels as if there's a moment when it's done. And to me, it's like, oh, okay, so from this point of the horizon, it now looks like this, or this is where to go next. I didn't know, there's a lot of things in that play where I really put myself on the line, and there's a lot of vulnerable stuff that is shared.
Yep.
I didn't know whether people who share my background or people who don't share my background, how they would react, whether they would welcome it, whether they would find themselves in it, and so on. And what I found is that it opened, it's a play called Nowhere. And what it did was open a space of belonging for everyone, it seems, who came and saw it, in such a way that people didn't want to leave afterwards. They would stay in the theater.
But you can look at it from the point of view of, you just said, that you were worried about how people would receive it, that they almost had to feel like you to understand it. But as such an accomplished actor, you took them on a journey and they understood your perspective because you were telling them a story. So from that point of view, it was a piece of drama, if you want to look at it purely from
Absolutely.
a,
Yeah.
theatrical point of view. But someone like me who has a similar background to you, I felt like I was walking behind you in your footsteps as you were saying this, as you were walking through your story, and and it was extremely powerful, and the venue was unbelievably well suited to the
Mm,
play
mm,
because it was small, intimate, tightly packed in. You could, you were touching your neighbor. I mean, there was no space for maneuver, and you were on your own on stage, and you were riveting. You were just an hour and a half without intermission of just, you went for it, and day in day out for whatever it was, 2 3 weeks. I mean, that is that is a real tour de force. I mean, you must have spent about a month sleeping after that. I mean, I don't know how you did
mm. I wish. I wish. What are we now? We're like 6 weeks. We're 6 weeks later. I mean,
Yeah,
I tell you, my dream landscape has been intense since. But there
I'm sure
hasn't
it
really,
has.
but there hasn't really been a moment to, with everything that's going on in the world and my life. I mean, there hasn't really been a moment to fully take stock. Look, I mean, this again, it goes back to me to the world around me is riven with crises.
Mm,
I just see uh, there is so much darkness, it seems, around me. And
yeah,
so I look for, in whatever I do, I look for the encouragement that there is a way out. And part of what doing the play did for me is gave me a real and very powerful sense of encouragement in having created a space, as you say, incredibly intimate, but also kind of big enough for it not to feel small, I hope, like
yeah,
uh, in which eye to eye we get to be in a space and go, we can relate to each other in this way, with the fullness of our histories and our sense of where we want to go. And if we can do that in this space, in this way, then surely we can do it out there. And so for me, at some level, I don't I don't finish that play with a sense of rest of kind of I've done it. I finish the play with a sense of encouragement that yes, we exist in this relationship with each other. Now let's do the work to make sure that that we go elsewhere. And it's a play in which at some level I am responding. I mean, the final year of making that play was the year in which a genocide is taking place in Palestine, in Gaza. And, we spoke about 9/11 earlier. The journey from, you have to, at some level, in your experience of Arab identity over the last 23, 24 years, right? You're bound to draw a line between 9/11 and what is happening now in Palestine.
yeah. No, not just that, but I think, if you're a child born in the Caribbean who is can also relate to this, because you've also got this juxtaposition of identities and location and so on. So it's not just being an Arab. You can only tell your story to other Arabs and they will relate. It's much bigger than that. It's a
Absolutely.
question of the being the other. That's fundamentally what we're discussing. It's the other versus
What are the narratives of the world that is shared? I'm sure you've been on the demonstrations in London. What are the world of the narratives and the politics that are shared on those demonstrations with hundreds of thousands of people marching in London and elsewhere in the world? What are the incredible stories that we tell that make that politics stronger, that make that world more possible? And it's for me, that's why I constantly live I'm not sure I want to call it PTSD, but there's something post-traumatic definitely about it in relation to the revolution in Egypt, where I lived in relation to a world that I saw right there in front of my eye, right?
Mm,
That
mm,
everyone
mm.
had said was impossible up
Yeah.
until the day in which suddenly it was all there. Now, we can agree or
Mm, mm.
disagree about what it was or could have been, and failure or not failure. Nonetheless, the experience of
It
what
was
that
there.
was there, right? The
Yeah.
realignments in people and who they were and what they dreamt was possible happened, albeit for a moment, right? And so you live the rest of your life kind of going, well, that wasn't a dream. It was
It
real.
really did happen. It really did happen.
What do I do for the rest of my life in the knowledge of having stood on that horizon?
So what do you do for the rest of your life knowing you
Well,
stood
you
on
live
that
for
horizon?
it. You live for it. You live for it in as much as you can in the present, based on your position and what you do in life.
The timing of the play was obviously the right time for you. You were ready to bring this to the public.
Right.
But what I find interesting as well is that I think the timing was right for the public. I think the timing was, people were receptive or were open to hearing stories that were nuanced and were not the caricatures of the Arab experience. And I think if that had happened, if that play had appeared 2, 3 years ago, I'm not sure whether people would have been as understanding or as open to the message. There's a shift that has
Yeah,
happened in the last
there
18
is
months.
a shift. I mean, there were things about it that needed that would. I mean, it's a play that will constantly change, and so had it been done 2 3 years ago, it would have been different.
Yeah,
Aspects of it would be the
yeah.
same, but aspects of it would be different. However, in some ways, so the journey, as I say, so I was first asked if I had this play in me, 2013, 2014. Which point I said no, it's not the right time for
Yeah.
lots of reasons.
No.
I returned to the UK, to London, uh, just as my son is being born, 2016, the day after Brexit, literally. And then
Oh,
Trump,
wow.
and then Trump comes to power a few months later. I'm rerouting in London. Our daughter is born. I'm starting to perform again in film and in theatre. COVID happened.
And during this period, Khalid, are you working?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm working. Yeah. George Floyd is murdered. At which point my entire body goes, if not now, when?
Interesting.
Which is what
Interesting.
produced the first draft. I feel that we as Arabs, especially those of us that have lived on both sides of the north and south or east or west or whatever you want to call it, it's almost like there's been an unwritten contract that you are going to let certain things go or not speak about certain things, fully, in the hope that gradually something will happen that will make things better, or that's
Hmm.
part of
Hmm.
but you reach a genocide and becomes entirely 100% clear the case that all of those silences are implicated in creating the circumstances of what we're living now.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there is no point anymore in hiding, right? But the difficulty is when you thaw those places that were frozen, you have to also relearn how to negotiate your relationship with them. How do you speak about these things?
Yeah.
How do you speak about these things while maintaining your safety, while maintaining your ability to thrive, while actually even exploring your opinion?
And you a year ago when the war began, you were in full promotion for the crown, as in your
Exactly.
role for Dodi Fayed, and you were on the media circuit, the publicity circuit, and you were on red carpets in
Yeah,
England and the US, etc.
suddenly having to confront the question.
And you were very vocal with your support of Palestine, and as we all admired you to be doing. How was that received?
This is where sort of like you asked me the question about the dots that join, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When I took on the role of Dodi, I never expected that it would be coming out into the world during a moment like this.
Yeah, of course.
And what I'd never asked, I had understood that in the role of Dodi, there was a huge and very important cultural opportunities. You know, here is a man
Hmm.
who for 26 years, basically people knew nothing about. And that reflects something culturally about the world, about representation, about structural racism, and so on. What I had never expected, and I can't believe I never asked myself the question, right, was how many Arabs can I think of in the history of film on this side of the world, right, who you get to know and love, not fear, and so when they die, you mourn them.
Mm, mm.
And I can hardly think of any.
The only one I can think of is Omar Sharif.
Well, what role does he die in which you mourn him?
Oh, you mean a role, an actual role
Yeah,
in
an
a
actual
film?
role in a film.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know either, actually.
Right? And in a context in which my entire life we have been slaughtered live on television, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah,
suddenly you're
yeah.
in the midst of a genocide in which thousands of people are being killed, unmourned. And the sudden confrontation between those two things made it just completely impossible for me to walk out onto that red carpet, to walk out onto a red carpet and not be making a statement that had the fullness of my body, my culture, my politics, my relationship with the world, and to try and negotiate a way through that.
And how on a sort of a purely sort of transactional star to, stardom level, how is that going to impact your future?
Well, that's what I didn't know, right? That's what I
Yeah.
didn't know. And I was hugely afraid. And the truth is, every time I have done one of those things, I've been afraid. However, I've also known that I have to do it. And what has happened each time is that my worst fears have not been realized. And I have been hugely surprised by the spheres of solidarity that I have
Yeah.
found.
Hmm.
And that uh, rather than, I don't know, encounter a world in which I'm about to be cancelled and my entire career thrown down the drain, is that actually by simply going, I'm here, people who I want to find me, and I find them.
Hmm.
And it's sort of you discover one of the perverse things about cultural silences, uh, is that you'd almost think it was unsurprising, right? That when aspects of you remain hidden from other people who share your desires, and you remain hidden in part from yourself, and they remain hidden from themselves.
But I also think, Khalid, just on a very a visceral level, you wouldn't even be putting yourself forward as a good actor that way, because you're concealing this fundamental part of who you are. And so you're not able to give as you would have given without showing this side of yourself, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and to be honest, as you say that, I kind of can think back on the entirety of my career and kind of go, it's really in relation to that part of me, the part of me
Yeah.
that is that is willing to fight to express itself. That the work that I'm proud of has happened in all the films and in all the theatre, all the various things that I've done, because there is an immense pressure to assimilate in ways that negate your identity.